broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Kiera. Kiki.
Good song choice.
You know, I know my praise and worship music now.
I'm about to go in right now. Hey. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned in to the Preachers of Detroit After Show. I'm so glad that you are joining us. You want to make sure that you subscribe to us here at AFTERBUZZ TV at youtube.com/AFTERBUZZ TV. That's where you can see all of our after shows, including this one. And I also want you to make sure you follow us on YouTube and SoundCloud. Yes. And you can hashtag us, if that's a word. It's not really, but I'm just going to use it. You can hashtag us at hashtag ABTVPOD, and that's for Preachers of Detroit. I am your host, Lem Gonsalves, and you can find me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at The Poet Saint. Patric Paul, where can they find you, sir?
Hey, listen, guys, I'm Patric Paul, okay? Patric, no K, Paul, Patric Paul at Twitter and IG and social. Anywhere social is Patric Paul, okay, guys?
And of course, I am Gary Thomas. You can find me at I am Gary Thomas on Instagram and Twitter, and IamGaryThomas.com.
Awesome. I'm ready to get into the episode. Are you guys ready?
Yes. Let's do it, man. I can't wait.
Let's do it. So I want to start with Pastor Timothy Alden.
Okay. All right.
It kind of started the show with. I just want to start with him because I think that first of all, I'm glad to see him because we haven't seen him since like the first episode. He has been really missing. I think his name might have been mentioned like once, but other than that, we haven't seen him. So we did get to see him, a really good chunk of him this particular episode, which I'm really happy about. And of course, because of what he's about, his mission statement, I knew it was going to have to be with what he preaches about, his ministry, which is, celibacy and not having sex before marriage. And in this case, he was introduced alongside of Bullock.
What?
Which was interesting to have them two kind of together. So basically, Pastor Bullock decided he was going to have some type of, and it looked like it was before a service. It wasn't a whole lot of people there.
It was a Bible study.
I was going to say that too. Yeah. I was like, it was a handful of folks there.
But he did kind of mention that there was a time constraint after when he was having the discussion with the three of them, which we'll get into in a minute. But he did say that it was a Bible study. So it was happening right before. And this particular Bible study was going to be focused on abstinence and sex before marriage and kind of dealing with that. And what happened was Pastor Bullock called on Pastor Alden because of his ministry to kind of speak and talk about that because that is his heartbeat, that is his ministry.
50 years running, he says.
Right, 50 years, which... Okay, it's a long time, and I want to say
God.
Like it was
50 gallons.
Praise God.
It was pushed up, and I'm not hating. I'm just saying that not many people can do that.
Right.
Not many people can do that. That's why I said whoa. But he's done it. He even said this. He has a specialized ministry. He knows he is one of a kind in that sense, and that's why he is what he is. And I really feel that God did give him that ministry. I think that he gave it to him. However, not everybody sees it the same way he does.
Okay.
In this case, Pastor Bullock does not, because he gets up there and he gives his sermon about what he feels you should do. There was a lot of young people in there, and there was a lot of older people as well, and dealing with what he's gone through and what he feels like he should commit to. And then we have Pastor Bullock, who kind of cuts him off a little bit.
No, Pastor Bullock did cut him off, and I thought it was the most disrespectful thing because even though you don't agree, and you should have made it known that you had a time constraint.
But do you think that he cut him off because he didn't agree with him, or was it really a matter
Bullock
of
was
time?
just being Bullock.
Bullock
was being a bully.
The bulldog.
Yeah, that's what he was being.
Okay.
At that time, when Tim was speaking his message,
right,
he should have just allowed him to speak his message about abstinence. I mean, the City of Praise ministry, what he's been doing has been a great thing. Like you said, it's a calling for him to do. So Bullock to interrupt that and pass out condoms, I just thought that was a bad taste.
I just think that he should have told him beforehand, like, you have a small window of time where you're really getting cut in close to service. Can you keep it short? Because just to cut him off and then it's pass out the condoms and kind of make this like a joke, which is so disrespectful and just disrespectful to his whole message. Although his message does need to be shaped a little bit differently for the people he's speaking to, depending on the church he's at. Right. Just that way Bullock did was just so rude.
Yeah.
Okay, so my take on it is Bullock is just rude. He's just him. So he's going to be rude. He's going to be crass. He's going to be in your face. That's kind of how he is. That's what he does. And he didn't pull anything. I'm not sure if it was a case of time constraint or it was a case of him not agreeing with what he was saying or if it was a mixture of both.
He was given an alternative. That's what he was doing.
Right.
He was like, okay, I agree with your message, but he even said in the show, he said, I agree with your message, but if you can't hold
happens,
out, if you can't hold out and you need a parachute. He used the analogy as like if you're jumping out of a plane, the plane's crashing, you need a parachute, bam, condom.
But there's a way to do that though. A way to counteract something and saying, you know what? His message is amazing. He has this powerful message and you guys should really hear him out. But I understand that sometimes we fall short. And it's just how you word it, the tone of everything, and you can get that point across. But you just break out with a joke and laughing and talking like, brother, you gonna need this. Come on.
Let's say we had kids. Let's say we had kids. Would we want our kids to listen to Bullock's message or Pastor Tim's message or a couple of both?
Well, again, going back to what Tim Alden is saying. Tim Alden is saying what the Bible, in essence, is talking about. He's getting his biblical references, basically saying that the Bible says that fornication is wrong and you should wait for sex until your marriage. And that's what he wholeheartedly believes. Now, there's a lot of people that have different variations of that. Bullock, and he said this, I think in the pilot episode, that he said, look, I know where my people are at. So that's well and good. However, I know where people are, so therefore I'm not going to condemn them. I'm paraphrasing now, but I'm not going to condemn them for what they're doing or what have you. So it's almost like if you're doing that, then yeah, you can get the help, but I understand why you're doing that because this, that, and the other. I think it was definitely rude to pass out the condoms in the church because even if he was going to come behind him and say there's an alternative or if you fall, but I think if you fall, there's grace, not condoms. You know what I'm saying?
At the same time,
I didn't hear that message, but you're right.
Yeah. But at the same time, you hear him say, you know what? It's people who don't believe in abstinence and don't believe in condoms either. So it's just kind of, you got to touch every aspect. And I understand where he was coming from in this sense. You do want to preach one message. But he made a great point that some people in there had already fallen short. So are we teaching abstinence or are we also teaching just celibacy and just getting it together?
There's a time and a place for the condom pass out. Come on now. You're not gonna be in a revival.
He's always gonna be in the health center.
Yeah, but it is gonna be in the health center. I mean, it's good to give information, but the people that I saw there was smart enough to know where to get a condom. So for him to pass out condoms after that sermon, I just thought that was in bad taste. Come on, let's just be real.
No, I think it was. You think it wasn't good taste?
I think the how he treated Pastor Alden was not in good taste.
Well, I'm saying the whole thing.
No, the pass out condoms. I definitely think it wasn't the best way of doing things, but when he said that some people just don't even believe in either, at least let's start peeling back that onion skin. You have it's layers to getting people to being saved and on that level of grace. You have to take people through the journey of where they're at. You can't start them way over here when they have not even gone through these roads first. So that's what he's saying, and I think that it gets misconstrued. Wasn't it the most tasteful thing and the most tactful thing to do? No.
Now, if you have a condom, you're more than likely probably going to try to do something, and I'm thinking, you don't need the condom.
But you're saying they're smart enough to find condoms, or are they not smart enough to listen to the message?
Yes.
You cannot you can't put them in such boxes like this. They're either on one side or the other.
I mean, Bullock slapped the guy on his chest. This is a strong young man. I know you doing your thing. The way he did it, and then now here.
Right.
If you do something. So that's almost, if I was a youth, I would think, so it's not wrong to do it? Then I'll be confused.
That wasn't the message.
I'll be confused. No, but as a youth, I would be confused.
That man's 28.
Like I know it's wrong, but you give me a condom, so it's wrong, but I got a condom, so if I do it, and I'll be okay. I'll be confused.
I think it's very similar to when children have this talk parents have this talk with their children, and they basically say, I don't want you having sex before you're ready. Well, I'll use that term. But if you do, here's a condom because I don't want you to die, or I don't want you to have children. So I don't want you to do do it, but if you do, here's protection. Okay. I think it's a very similar tactic. It's a very carnal tactic, because what it does is it takes the spirit out of it. I think, this is my opinion, it takes the spirit out of saying like, God can keep me, like he has, like Pastor Alden. I think that he's had temptations. He's resisted the temptations. Jesus, if we want to really go, super high, you think Jesus was tempted? Absolutely. But he did it, but he was also Jesus, and he was perfect, and that's why he died on the cross for us. I think what it is it's just, Bullock's way is just a more carnal approach to doing it, and people can agree or disagree with it. I think passing them out in church, yes. Okay. Health center, sure. They're available to you at the health center, outside of the walls of the church. But
can you see the reasoning in looking in the vice versa, in that some of these people may never go to the health center or go anywhere where it's a message
about
this.
Or to the 7-Eleven or to the Kmart. Oh, come on.
But I can get them in my church.
No, you cannot come here to the house of the Lord to get your condoms and your prophylactics. No, I'm sorry.
He's not saying that he's in every single service.
But what I'm saying is, you can tell the guy, hey, listen, don't have sex, and if you do, get a condom, opposed to don't have sex, get a condom, right. By the way, I got a couple for you.
Right.
Come on now.
Tonight. Yeah. I think it's all an approach. I personally think that it was in bad taste to pass them out in the church. I see where Bullock is coming from, but it just, in essence, to what Pastor Alden was saying, whether you agree or disagree with it, he's invited him to his church to preach, and then to cut him off, and then to kind of contradict what his message was saying. It's like, why am I here? You know what I'm saying? Why did you even bring me here? Almost to ridicule me. And when they had the conversation, when it was the two of them, and it was also Bishop Langston, and he was talking, and he was kind of mediating what was going on, because of course Alden went to Langston, kind of told him what happened. Langston is not the super fan of Bullock, and we all know that they've had their kind of tug of war, and kind of missing the mark of each other, what they're saying. So he kind of came to him, and then Langston then is now this mediator between the two of them, and then Bullock is saying, well, I'm stand by. And the one thing with Bullock, though, I will say, he stands by what he does. He doesn't back down. I
like that guy for that.
And that's just how he is. He's going to tell you how it is, and that's, take it or leave it. And when he was talking to Pastor Alden, he was basically saying, I appreciated what you said. I felt that, and he said, even after the fact, people were saying, commenting like, I really appreciated what he said, the fact that, he's passionate about what he's doing, all of these kind of things. So, and Alden didn't know that. All he knew was, pass out the condoms, I'm out. And he kind of left and didn't, he wait for afterwards. So, I mean, you can look at it both ways. It seemed like they kind of came to a consensus a little bit. I don't know if that was maybe just for the show's sake or what. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, anytime you have Bullock in a debate, Bullock's going to win. And because they did talk about it, I just think Pastor Tim just took a back seat to it. Although he still was annoyed and aggravated by it, he just took a back seat to it.
You think he just let it be what it was?
I think so. He still feels that was wrong, and he, like he said, he's not going to be a party to that again. So he just took a back seat to it, in my opinion, when you asked me that question.
Okay.
I think that was the bad move. Why take a back seat? I think Pastor Bullock made a very good point when he said, how much time are you going to spend talking to the same audience, the audience that wants to hear this? Sometimes you need to go to the audience that doesn't want to hear this, that has never heard this word, and shape it for these people. I'm not sure how often he is in that situation where he has to deal with this kind of controversy, where people are going to kind of put him in that that hot seat because of the type of ministry that he does, and because it's so powerful, and it's because it's such a standard message and it's such a strict message, he has to be prepared for those type of that backlash.
Well, you're right, Gary. I agree with you in totality with that. What you say? No, I do. No, I do. But I gotta say, but, and the but comes.
Right.
It's just that Pastor Tim is, I believe, for 50 years, he is an expert in that ministry. So let him do it his way. And it's been successful for him, so let him do it his way. You can't come in and say, okay, well, I'm pass out condoms because they can never find a place to get condoms. Sure. Don't you think that Pastor Tim knows this already? He's probably come to this obstacle before, so let him do it his way. So to step on his toes, I just thought that was, like I said, in bad taste.
My thing is about it, though, if you hear the same sermon every week, are you gonna go to that same church?
Right,
no,
but he's not
exactly.
He's not preaching this.
He is
every.
This is what his whole platform is.
His platform is.
He's a pastor. I need you to save lives.
Right, but
that
it's not
is
like
where
he's
the faith is missing in the whole world.
He was brought in as a guest speaker for that particular topic. He wasn't brought in to preach a message.
I'm not saying that's
per se.
bad.
I'm just saying he was brought in. We don't know what he preaches every Sunday at his own church. I can't see him preaching that every single Sunday. But he is, like you said, an expert in that.
Yeah.
So he's invited. He said he's gone all over the world. Yeah. So he's brought in because of his expertise in that area to speak on that particular topic.
Yeah. No, and I'm saying only thing I don't like about that conversation is that he took a backseat instead of being, having a little more fire.
Well, it's hard to argue with Bullock. Yeah. I mean, you don't want. Look,
I don't care who Bullock is.
But the word says you don't want to see
about it.
The word says you don't want two people quarreling, and when you watch it from afar, it looks like two people quarreling. It don't matter who's right and who's wrong. So he just took a backseat to that, and I understand that. Period. That's how I look at it. It's like, why argue with the guy?
Right.
Because that is the problem. When God lights that fire under you, he's telling you this message to push. You need to not step back. Because all it's going to do is build up in you again. You're going to have that same fire again to shoot back. But because he's firing you up every time with this message.
True, but you also have to have wisdom to know when.
There it is.
You know what I'm saying? Too, because again, with Bullock, he's going to try to berate you. He's going to try to do whatever he can with words. He saw that firsthand. Alden did when they all had the powwow. Yeah. And so I think with him, he's more or less saying, I'm not going to do his church. I'm not going to be with his church anymore. I've learned my lesson. Let's move on. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah. I'm going to keep doing what God called me to be.
That's right.
And if that's how he feels, and that's it. And that's how I think he approached it.
Lem.
I'm just saying, and y'all know I like Bullock. I love
like
the
Bullock
power
too.
of the message. But sometimes with people like that, they don't stop or look at or hear until you put them in their place.
Listen, for the viewers at home, you guys should try to look up the statistics on teen pregnancy, right? And then see that if his message is worth any weight in gold.
It is.
So then let him do his thing, Pastor Bullock. Let him do his thing.
Well, he is doing his thing. He's going to continue doing his thing. Hopefully, we'll have him on the show, and he can talk more about that. We can find out more about what his heartbeat is and what he does talk on a daily basis.
Yeah, pretty soon you're going to get Pastor Tim.
Yeah. That's what we're looking at.
Let's ask him.
That's what I'm saying. Pastor Tim, that's what I'm bringing. So let's move on to Bishop Vaughn, Corletta Vaughn. It starts off with her. It starts off with her. Talking with Langston's wife about, just things in general. And of course, with, Bishop Vaughn, she is like the female version of Bullock. She tends to disagree with a lot of the women in the cast, a lot of the pastors' wives, and kind of their philosophy, ideology, things of that nature. She's talking with, again, Bishop Langston's wife. And again, Bishop Langston's wife finds out about that, her husband, Bishop Vaughn's husband, lives in North Carolina, doesn't live in Detroit, and is kind of taken aback, which I think most people would be. So they kind of talk about that, and she just kind of is, listening to what she's saying. And then, of course, Langston's wife then goes over and talks to Bishop Langston about it as well. And they kind of discuss it about the situation on top of that. First of all, we know what happened, in the last episode, and how his her husband left. He sounds like he still hasn't been back as of yet, up to this point. Do you think that with his husband being gone all the time, do you think that it's discrediting her as a pastor?
I would say yes. Like just the normal viewer is watching it. Right. Yes, I would say that's something psychological going there. Something personal that's going on to where how can I listen to the word that you're preaching if your house and your home is disruptive like it is, and it's something wrong there. Sure. Period. Yeah. So that's why it's even a hot topic with us right now, because there's something wrong there. She has a great word. I love her empowerment of women. I love that. Right. But there's something going on in the household that we need to figure out.
No, it doesn't discredit me. I know Bishop Vaughn is the homie. I love her. Right. And I just think that we're always putting pastors, bishops, evangelists on this pedestal that they don't belong on. They're human. They didn't die for our sins. They are human just like you and I. So things happen in their lives that are real. That does not discredit her message at all to me. She just has issues that she has to deal with, just like I got issues that I got to deal with. If the Holy Spirit gave me the word and I spoke it over to your life, and I'm being prophetic and God gave me this word, it doesn't discredit it because I have mistakes in my life. No.
I think for me, when I look at someone who is, again, a pastor, I look at what in totality what they're doing. They are a shepherd over a flock. but also as a shepherd over a flock, they perform marriages, they do marriage counseling, things of that nature. And I don't know if she does that or what, but normally pastors do that. That's part of their ministry. So if your husband or your spouse, even if it was a man and the spouse was gone, I think I would take some kind of reservation with the fact that they live in a different state, not knowing the situation, but it would be hard pressed for me as a member to go to them. Let's say, I'm not saying to go to them for prayer. If I need prayer and they're anointed and I'm under their leadership, by all means, pray for me. But to go to them, if I'm getting married, to go to them for counseling, that would be a situation where I would kind of take a step back, because it's obviously not, you know what I'm saying? It's obviously not perked with that. That's what I mean about discrediting the ministry.
To me, she's not a psychologist.
Okay.
She's a bishop. So if everything guidance she's giving you is something that God is speaking through her, that's the credit right there. That's the meat right there. She's not doing it based on her life experience or based on her book smart. This is the word that God is giving her.
Nah, I think she thinks she's, psychologically, I think she thinks she's falling short somewhere to where she has to hang on to this marriage with this guy that's not, we can see with our own eyes that he's off doing his own thing.
Right.
Even when he came into the hotel room and with his little tattered, raggedy little suitcase and opened it up and put his clothes in there and went past her and left, she don't need to deal with that.
She doesn't, but she's
so
hurting.
because she don't need to deal with that, then if I was a young teen girl, I would think, well, if she put up with that, then I could put up with this knucklehead gangbanger that I want to be with.
Wait a minute. Okay,
I'm just saying.
Jill ain't going upside Bishop Vaughn's head. Okay,
I'm just saying. I love her. They have a marriage issue. But let's be real. Let's be real. She having marital issues, but this, I don't know how. I forgot how long has it been at the house? 11 years.
It's been 11 years that they've been married. They haven't lived together officially for that whole time.
That's ridiculous.
You just did an apples and oranges.
That's ridiculous.
Apples and oranges right there.
It's already that's almost like a marriage where the guy sleeps in the bedroom and the girl sleeps on the couch, or vice versa.
Or they have two separate bedrooms.
And that's already hard. But to be in a whole different state, that's ridiculous.
I think for me, again, and there's, again, the whole pedestal thing, I know what that is. Again, I'm a PK. I've seen that happen with myself and my family, where we could do no wrong, and if there was a mistake made, it's like, So I get that, and I don't think that they should be put on pedestals. However, you do have to be an example. And I think when you look at the time frame, you look at that they've been married for 11 years and they haven't lived together, according to their account, for that 11 years. It's not been 2 years or 1 year where there's some rifts there and there's some, marital problems, because I think any marriage goes through some issues, and that's just part of being married.
I'm not mad at that.
Marriage is hard. That's why you really have to seek God in the marriage because of that. Now we're talking, again, 11 years. Neither one has buckled down to decide they want to live. So, and we see through the lens that they've showed us that it's creating an issue.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is, I was asking the question, does it discredit? Because I can see how people would look at that as her being an example, a bishop who is over churches, not just one church.
You're right.
Has several churches over it.
I said yes.
Well, you're right.
So,
I think that's what happens, especially in the black church so often. This the way we are viewing our pastors and our leaders in church, the different joints, where we're putting them above perfection. They're supposed to be doing, yes, they lead by example.
They should stand apart.
They're human. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have marriage issues. If their marriage was perfect, I wouldn't believe it myself. They're human. You should have an issue in your marriage. There was a choice.
You shouldn't have an issue, right? I agree with that.
It just happens. And the thing about it is,
man, all right.
You forgot Bishop Langston's wife chose to leave her law career. She had to battle with that herself, so we don't know that at that point in time that they may have had some issues themselves. We aren't seeing that. She didn't just wake up one day, boss, I quit. I'm out of here. Going to follow my husband. She took her time.
But if you take that example, though, that's a good thing to look at, because she basically was the one that decided that she was going to leave her career for the sake of her husband's ministry. I know when my father became a pastor, he moved to another city because he felt that's where God called him. My mother had to agree with that in order for their marriage to stay whole.
But it didn't happen overnight.
No, it didn't happen overnight. And I'm sure there was a lot of discussion. However, what I'm saying is we're talking about discussion and we're talking about 11 years. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. And the difference with using that example you gave about Langston's wife is that she did decide for the sake of their marriage because she felt it was best, and I'm sure they prayed about it, that she would then quit and then do that. And it sounds like she doesn't have regrets. It's with the difference with Bishop Vaughn and her husband, I think neither one of them has to, but they're still keeping on.
They haven't addressed the issue.
They haven't
fully
it seems like the next episode they gave us a leader.
I
They're going to talk about it. I can't wait either, because I definitely need to know some answers. I need more answers. I need to find out more about their relationship, because it's really heavy on my heart right now. Because I love her. I love her like you love her. But without more information, I'm looking at her like, oh, she's just a girl that wants her man, but is blind to the fact that he's gone, or that he's doing his thing. And I don't want to look at her like that. I want to look at her like she's a strong black woman that's trying to empower young other black women. That's what I want to look at her at. But with this guy in her life right now, Gil, not acting right, then I'm short.
What we're seeing in Gil is not a credible man right now. We're not seeing great sides of Gil.
Well,
what they're showing us is not great sides of Gil right now.
Give it some time. I think it's not great sides of Bishop Vaughn either. I mean, I think it goes both ways. But I do agree. I think we're going to see some more, and hopefully get down to that and kind of see where the root of the problem is, and hopefully they address it. Let's move on to the Shelbys.
Shelby 5. Shelby 5.
Okay, so
I love to hate
Shelby. So you'll get another YouTube comment.
I love to hate him.
You'll get another YouTube comment. So we see the Shelbys talking. We typically see them together a lot of times. We do see Pastor Shelby and his wife sometimes, but a lot of times we see that together. And I will say I do like that. I think that mirrors a lot of my, I come from siblings. I have 4 other siblings. There's 5 of us. We spend a lot of time together. So I like that. I like that they show that. I like that they show that they kind of get along and they like to play. Like they were shooting little guns and stuff like that. Family, there's some things that I still find, some issue with me in dealing with how they, just going to how they're very strict with their, and I don't think strict is really the term, but I think that it kind of shelters them. I don't think you should shelter your children. And when the son came to his father and wanted to talk about, like, we need more production, things of that nature, we want to get some work with another artist, and they're very excited about what they're doing with their music and everything that's going on, and he was kind of had reservations about them going to a secular producer because he feels like, I don't want the music tainted and all that kind of stuff. I will say that in this particular episode, I saw the struggle he had, but I also saw there was somewhat of a release. Where he kind of saw where his son was coming from and the rest of his children, and kind of became progressive, because it sounds like he does come from the old school, even with how he views, with women being how they are, how he's raising his daughters, which some of that is good. I think that's good to have that type of, relationship with your children and rear your children up that way. But there's also some things that I think are too much and too excessive that he does with his children and with his family. So when he talked to him, I was interested to see how he was going to react. Like I said, I did see some release with him, and I think a lot of that had to do with when the son, after they had went and saw Dorinda Clark and kind of give her, when she was playing songs for a new project, and then the producer came out, Joe Flip Wilson. He happened to be a secular producer, but he was the producer for Dorinda Clark, and we know that she's a great evangelist. She's very anointed. So I think that gave weight to Pastor Shelby, and why he was a little bit more like, if that's what you want to do, I just want to make sure the music stays whole. I just want to make sure that's tainted. What do you think about him and how he's doing this with the kids?
I just think that this is a grand scheme of things, and the world needs to understand this. Just because someone's working in a faith-oriented genre doesn't mean they won't burn you. In fact, they tend to burn you way faster, because they'll, I know they're not doing it for necessarily fame or fortune, but when it comes down to cutting checks, people in faith will sometimes cut you short because you're doing the work of the Lord, and that's how they use your talents. That's how they utilize your talents beyond what it is. Where people in secular, they know it's business, So I just don't want him to get too caught up in, are they only, faith? Are they only faith? Because they will burn you just as quick, So just to be I love that he finally, just gave him a little bit more, because it seems like the kids want to do greater things. Sure. And stepping outside of faith will be so much more production. They will be great.
Well, I think too, when it comes to music, I mean, there's different facets of music and music production. You know, just because, I mean, you got someone like, use an example like Rodney Jerkins, who is a professed Christian, but he works with tons and tons of secular artists. But I know that I've heard that when they come into the studio, there's certain things he doesn't allow them to do out of respect for how he feels. But it's his job. His job is a music producer. So he doesn't separate that. If you go to the store and you buy groceries, do you go to a store that is a Christian, you know what I'm saying? Like you go to the store that has the groceries that you want. So when it comes to music, I see that as very similar. I do agree that you don't want to taint the music because he wants a certain sound, and I think his children are still very young, and they're impressionable. And I think he just wanted to make sure that the music stays, you know, in the vein, because there are times where, I mean, you look at, you know, tons and tons of soul singers and R&B singers, 9 times out of 10 they came out of the church, you know, and they decided to go another way. And he probably sees that and doesn't want his kids to start singing gospel and then maybe go secular because there's more money or there's more, you can be more famous and things like that nature.
I became a fan of Pastor Don with this episode only because he sat back, he listened to his son give his spiel, and then he gave him some wisdom. He asked him, are you looking for the church or the world? Right? So if he's looking for the church or the world, he has to make a decision. There's money in both, right? But you have to make your own decision. Well, I don't know what the young kid's thinking about. Maybe he's thinking about fortune and fame. We don't know. He's just a kid. We don't know. So we don't know why he's using that secular way, because he liked the beats, he's like all that. But really, I would like him to keep it in the ministry. You know, I don't want him to intertwine that. You know, I come from a ministry. Well, I come from a ministry where hip hop is the truth about hip hop. I really don't like to intertwine the both. It's like, keep it separate.
But we're not. So you're saying as far as mixing artists together, like having a secular artist on your project, like that, you don't like that?
No, I wouldn't do that. You know, what's made for the Lord is made for His word.
No.
But in this episode, the question was posed to the young guy. It said, are you making it for the world or for the church? And then they cut and they went to something else. So we don't know the answer. But
he said the world.
Okay, so are you okay with that?
He's not saying be worldly.
I think he's saying when reach the
I know what he's saying.
Yeah.
But remember, everybody that's viewing this is not, you know, of Christian base. Sure. Everybody's not in the church. But if those are two, it's either good or bad, black or white, church or world, and he chose world.
Let me tell you something. He's not saying worldly things, but the thing about it is God's grace, when it exudes from you, people feel it. You can look at the Walls Group. You can look at Kiara Shear. You can look at all these great artists that are in the gospel world, but they work outside of the faith-oriented artists. They have secular artists on their projects, and they're still holding that helmet of salvation through their music and saving people because it's relatable. It's good to hear. They have these great beats. They have up-tempo stuff. They have people really rocking out to God's music.
I can be on this subject for hours, and I'm not going to even start to get into it, but I'm just going to bottom line it. I don't really agree with him deciding to work with this producer if this producer is going secular, period.
Well, okay, so let me just ask you this question, just in relation to what you just said. Do you feel that if someone produces secular music, like they work and they are a producer or even sing secular music, do you think that they cannot be a Christian?
They can be a Christian.
Okay.
They definitely can.
Okay, so then what I'm saying is, just for a case in point, this particular producer that was on the show, Joe Flip Wilson, he obviously works with gospel artists and secular artists, but let's say he's a Christian. Do you feel that because he does secular music that now anyone else that does music with him is going to be tainted? Because obviously Dorinda Clark is doing music with him.
Not necessarily, but that was the question that he asked him on the first meeting is where you want to go. And he gave him the answer. I want
I don't need to save the church. I need to save more people. There are people in the church that
okay,
we'll
save them, but you don't need a beat by Dre.
Right, but
because the people, so they can want to hear it, you want to reach them.
You do want to reach them, and why can't a Christian producer make a beat from his head, from his heart, and not necessarily loop some track that he got from Dr. Dre or Snoop or something like that just to make it popular.
Okay, that's like saying
because those beats are made in studios with marijuana in it and things on their mind is not in the spirit, and because those are not in the spirit, then why God don't need that. God can make his own stuff.
Right.
He don't have to sample something.
But I think
such a drastic well, I just told you I can go deep into it, but I don't have time to go deep into it.
I just think going back to my original situation, if their music if someone decides they're going to produce secular music, I don't think that you can discredit them from being a Christian, nor because that's their job. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's the job that they are doing.
All right.
They decide, however you live, because I think when people get stuff on their projects, like, gospel artists, they get stuff on their products, secular artists, I think it's because they want to reach the world. Because they know that artist, if they're on their song,
I agree.
Whoever's fans of that artist will then want to hear that song
agree.
and then be like, oh, I'm bumping Karen Clark in my living room, not knowing it's a gospel song, but then I'm touched.
Raising
you know
the
what I'm
roof,
saying?
getting
so
saved.
I think that's the most important thing to look at. I think that's more important. And I think when he posed that question, Joe Flip, when he says, who do you want to reach, the church or the world? He said that because Joe Flip Blueson probably has connections to reach the world, where a lot of Christian artists may not have those same connections. I think that's really what the statement was made.
Church was small, world is bigger. So he's asking, are you just going for the church, or are you going for the world?
Exactly.
And I understand that question.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm listening to a deeper ear, and the deeper ear is for the person that don't know anything, and they chose black or white, church or world,
but then
good or evil.
Right, but then that's what you're making sure, you're saying the audience doesn't recognize that. I don't think you should shortchange the audience. That's all.
Some of them.
We'll see.
I can't always just preach to the church. I can't always have the artist that God created me to be just for the people that I go to church with or in the church.
Well,
there are people out there that need that saving. People need to see people that are just like you, that don't take their cool off, but still working for the Lord in everything they do.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a Bible contented artist to be a faith-oriented artist.
But like his daddy said just basically his daddy don't want him to get tainted along the way. And that's all I'm saying.
He said don't change the message. If the message is always saying,
then it's all good, no matter what happens.
If he decides to become an R&B artist.
We'll see how it develops. I would like to now get into predictions, because I really want to talk about what's going to go on to the next episode. So let's do that. Let's get into predictions. And now we're in predictions. So music. So, Gary.
We don't need no music. We don't
need no music.
We don't need no music.
I was about to play it real quick.
Give me your predictions.
All right, Gary. What do you think?
Predictions.
What do you think going forward, predictions wise? Anything that we discussed going forward? There were obviously some pastors that we didn't see. So I'd like to know what you think.
My homegirl, Bishop Vaughn, we're about to see the walls come down. I think that we're definitely going to see the woman in her and not just the power in her. And I think we're going to see some very vulnerable sides of her.
Okay.
Something in me somewhat thinks one of the Shelby Five really doesn't want to be in gospel. I think one of them really might want to be in secular music. And I don't know why that's in the back of my head, but... Nothing against what they definitely do, but something in England. You know how sometimes the different music draws you in. It's not always gospel. So maybe they might step outside of that.
Okay.
I think those are my predictions.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what to predict. Only because the show has been taking me on a whirlwind. Every week is something different, and I'm on that. Like today's episode made me want to basically figure it out, do more. But I know next week is going to be a different episode. I'm going to have to figure that out. So I'm thinking that, Gil's going to probably tell us his story.
Okay.
We're going to feel more about where he's coming from and his part of life, because right now we tainted him as the bad guy, and that's not fair until we hear his story.
Right.
And so I'm believing that in my predictions, I'm thinking that he's going to get a chance to tell his story.
Okay. Interesting. I just think that I'll just say this. I'm excited for Pastor Bullock's date. I think that's going to be great TV. So I'm just predicting that is going to go very interesting. I'm just going to leave it like that. That's going to be an interesting date.
Since we're talking about excitement, and I didn't want to cut you off, but I meant to say I'm excited about this consecration for the bishop to really be, that's going to be amazing.
He's already in it. I mean, he counseling Bullock and Tim.
This is the
he's already in it.
But I mean, this is the official.
And this is going to be so powerful to see another man just rise in God like that.
That should be a good episode.
Because I'm just saying, all right, we'll see.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's been our show. We, of course, want to thank you for tuning in. Want to make sure that you tweet us. Make sure you use the hashtag ABTVPOD in your tweets. Again, I am your host, Lem Gonsalves. You can find me on social media at The Poet Saint, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. Patrick, where can they find you?
Patric Paul. That's where you can find me as of now.
Yeah.
We're going to fix that.
Right.
You can find me at I am Gary Thomas on Instagram and Twitter, and IamGaryThomas.com.
Awesome. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Later, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.